Welcome to Common Sense. Common Sense program is a series of shows that feature interviews with interesting people, and will help us to get to know who these folks are, what they do, and what makes sense to them, and what doesn't. And it will do so in a clear, concise, and direct way. I'm Rudy Breglia, and today I'll be interviewing the wise, wonderful, and generous Renee Jones, the president and CEO of the nonprofit Renee Jones Empowerment Center. Thank you very much, Renee, for coming today. Welcome to Common Sense.
Thank you.
And if you can start us off, where were you born? Give us some background. Where have you lived?
Yes.
And what brings you to this part of Ohio?
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Lived here all my life. Have a very passionate about the city.
Okay.
And, seeing our city. And I live in Lakewood, Ohio, but I was
Okay.
born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. Tell us about the history of the Empowerment Center and how long have you been operating?
Okay.
I know an anniversary is coming up.
It's the anniversary. Yes, so our center is celebrating this year 20 years of operation.
Okay.
So
All
we're
right.
pretty excited. We started off in 2002 is when we opened our first storefront facility. And we were in that facility for 17 years.
Okay.
And very tiny, but the goal was to create something that was sustainable, that when victims and survivors came, they knew that we could be there, and it was affordable for us to maintain a space that's small.
Understand. In what Ohio areas does your organization function in?
Well, we work in different parts, all of Cuyahoga County, and
Okay.
as well as Summit County.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have an organization. It's actually a beautiful model that we created at federal housing subsidy called Spring Hill.
Okay.
And the reason why this is so important is because, a lot of times victims of human trafficking, just being in an impoverished area, sometimes make them super vulnerable.
Okay.
And so we wanted to create like a pilot where we can go in, teach the tenants about human trafficking, identify victims, and provide services right there in their building.
Okay. What is the mission statement of your organization?
So the mission statement of the Renee Jones Empowerment Center is, of course, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're unique in providing holistic restorative services for minor and adult human trafficking and sexual assault victims. These victims, they face many adverse challenges such as physical and emotional abuse, poverty, and addiction. And our mission is to empower these individuals to learn to advocate for themselves, to improve their quality of life through personal, social, and professional development. And our center is devoted to preventing human trafficking and sexual exploitation by actively engaging the community in anti-trafficking efforts and educating service professionals, law enforcement, educators, students, parents, and the community on the realities of this growing crime.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. How did your experience and training help you to construct this wonderful and effective organization?
A lot of people will ask me that question. Is a very interesting question because, number one, this is the type of work that, first and foremost, is a work of the heart.
Okay.
If you don't have a heart for this, because it's really hard work, but you have to have a heart and a passion for it.
Okay.
So all of my life, I've had a heart and a passion for those who are misrepresented, underserved, and abused. So that was one of the big factors that has always driven me.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I used to be the head director of human resources.
Okay.
So that people skills
That
and just
makes
working with
sense.
people. Not only was I responsible for the employees, but I was also responsible for the volunteers. So you met all types of people. So those kind of skills really were transferable, especially as any other business skills as well.
Understand. What is human trafficking? You mentioned it before.
Yes, so human trafficking, and this is important that people understand it. The definition by the law that says that this is human trafficking is if it's force, fraud, or coercion. So if someone was forced against their will, or they were, brought into some kind of fraudulent thing or coerced into it. And we see this a lot with a lot of young people thinking that with social media, they have so many platforms where they're meeting people that they don't know. And they're oversharing a lot of times. And these are what traffickers look for. So that is very important that people understand is force, fraud, or coercion.
Okay. Now, what's the human trafficking cycle, and how often do people kind of suck back into it?
So most of the victims that we have worked with, it's just like any other addiction. So you have Alcohol Anonymous, you have the organizations for people who are trying to stay off drugs. It's the same thing for a human trafficking victim. They must stay connected to support. So just like an alcoholic or a drug addict needs to go to, maybe AA or something like that, I look at this the same way, because they can be doing fine and then something may trigger them to go back into that lifestyle, because life is hard after coming out of something like that.
You bet.
It's not that easy to go and try to live a normal life.
What are the challenges that frequently face the victims of human trafficking?
Most of it is so much trauma.
Yeah.
They have experienced so much trauma, and the hardest part is that they never got help for it. So a lot of their trauma began in early childhood, and they were just continuously abused and just continuously victimized. So there's years and years and years of trauma that was never addressed.
Okay. What specific crimes are usually associated with human trafficking?
Now that's a very good question, because depending on who the trafficker is, they will always put the victim out to do the crime. So it could be stealing.
I see.
It could be a robbery. It could be drugs involved. It could be something very high level, because trafficking is just not happening in the ghettos, but it also happens in suburban areas. It happens in places, where there's high profile people as well. So the different things that someone could get involved in can range from something as simple as a robbery, carjacking, to money laundering.
I see. What groups of people are most often victims of trafficking?
Now that's the scary part. In the 20 years that we've been operating, I can tell you there's not a suburb that I have not seen victims from.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with your social economic status. It has to do with your vulnerability.
Okay.
Traffickers look for vulnerabilities that they can step in and be the person that's going to appear to save you.
Like children?
That's right. So you will see teenagers who a trafficker has gotten them involved in selling themselves just for simply providing a basic need, which might be food, might be shelter. Maybe they ran away from home, to an adult female or male who has been mistreated and been in bad relationships and think this person is really loving them.
Okay, understand. What are the characteristics that most traffickers share that allows them to attract and control victims?
Well, mostly people that take advantage of anybody that's has low self-esteem, lack of confidence. Those are things that make people extremely vulnerable.
Okay.
Because with social media today, for example, you may have a couple kids get on there, even adults. I see adults do this as well. And they share quite a bit of information on a social platform. So someone who has intent on doing harm, they can just read a few posts and tell maybe you're not getting along with your parents.
I see.
Maybe you're in a bad relationship, you've been mistreated. And so they'll take that information and they'll send maybe a friend request, and people are not thinking of anything of it. They begin to communicate back and forth, and it can start off as a grooming process.
I gotcha. Do victims actually trust the traffickers?
Absolutely. They do, because this is when I tell people some situations that we have, it's unfortunate, but when you look at the scenario that the person was in versus what this trafficker did, they think, well, that person's the better choice than what I had.
Okay,
So
understand.
it's, those kind of situations.
What lessons do we have about traffickers based on the trial of the recording artist R. Kelly?
Yeah, I think that we could learn a lot. There was a lot of lessons that I seen immediately just from working
Okay.
in this field. Number one is that when someone is taking you away from your family, which in that case, he had young girls they didn't communicate. He isolated. That's the first thing they start
Yeah,
to do is
isolation,
isolation.
yeah.
So that's something that parents can pay attention to. That kid was outgoing, talking, had friends. Now all of a sudden they're totally isolated, and the trafficker will begin to isolate them so that they only have that person to go to, which is the trafficker.
Understand. How do you educate service professionals with which you interact as an organization?
So what we did in 2007, we created our own training film.
Okay.
Because in the work that we've been doing for almost 2 decades, we were just the films that I seen. I'm like, that's not what I'm seeing.
Okay.
So let's create our own.
Okay.
And in that film, we incorporated 4 survivors who all told their stories, which makes it real for the person who is seeing it. And when possible, we would take those survivors there to have a talk back with the audience. So we've been using that film since 2007.
Okay.
And it's still effective today because it's a short film, but it's very powerful. And, then you're able to hear stories of 4 different individuals, and they're all different how they got involved.
Okay. Tell us about the routine interactions that you have with law enforcement and others, and how that helps trafficking victims.
Yes. So, well, we're very fortunate in Ohio, especially been working on this for so long, because years ago, nobody knew what I was talking about. They were like, what are you talking about? There's not trafficking here. That happens in other countries. But we have the Ohio Attorney General's office,
Okay.
who works very hard on making sure that we have a task force. And the task force that works in different parts of Ohio, we have one here, and they work hand in hand with the nonprofit agencies and other providers. We all work together to provide an array of services to those that they rescue out of this crime. So working hand in hand with the law enforcement is really critical because we share each information with each other. We can provide training from a survivor and victim perspective to law enforcement.
Teamwork.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Why don't these crimes get more attention in the media?
For a while, we were getting a lot more than in my opinion, today, we're hearing about it a lot more than you used to hear about it. But we need to make sure if it's not really big and high profile or a high profile person, there's so much that goes on. But if I tell people, if you simply Google human trafficking in Ohio, every day you get a Google alert. Every day I get something that'll tell you at some part of Ohio somebody's been convicted or someone's been victimized.
Do you have statistics on what's going on in Cuyahoga and Summit County as far as trafficking violations and convictions, that kind of information?
Yeah, what I wanted to share, there's an annual report that comes out annually. Now we don't have one for 2021,
Okay.
but we have the one from 2020 that comes out of Ohio Attorney General's office. And in that annual report, they rescued 103 victims and referred almost 216 victims for services. So that's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And those are only the ones that they were able to identify. So I tell people this is available, it's free, it's online, and I'm sure when they get a chance and get it done, you'll see one for 2021.
Okay. Now, whose office is that?
And Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost.
All right. Okay. Now, change gears a little. How can you spot the signs of trafficking in public?
There's so many signs. A lot of times I will tell people, it's a lot of body language.
Okay.
Sometimes you may see a very young girl with a much older man. Doesn't
Okay.
necessarily mean it's all the time, but you can tell by that body language. If the person is not able to speak for themselves, that person is always talking for them, answering questions for them when they're perfectly capable of doing it.
Right.
You may see bruises. Just their body language is like the first thing. You may see really strange tattoos on their bodies because these traffickers do kind of, brand their
Mark them.
mark them. So you can see something that is very unusual, or it has like a lot of the traffickers. And you'll see this with a lot of teens. They'll have things where the person's name is on them.
I see.
You'll have an actual barcode, like you're shopping at the store, and there'll be a barcode.
Okay. It's like cattle.
Oh yeah, it's really something.
That's really.
I think one of the things when I was first started doing this work, I'll never forget. That's when I really did a study of the tattoos that these traffickers use. I had 2 girls in a row, and they had the same tattoo, which was really odd. And it was a tattoo of a rooster's head, and it was red. And I thought, now who would just want that? I mean, like if you're into roosters, that's
Yeah,
great.
right.
But right behind each other. But what it was the same trafficker had these 2 girls. Those were letting you know that was his property.
Understand.
Yes.
Now, if you did see something in public, what should you do about it? Are there websites, phone numbers?
Oh yeah, there's phone numbers. What you don't want to do is get involved. You don't want to put the person at risk. So don't try to be a hero. Just pay attention to what you see. And then there are local hotlines available. We have the Cuyahoga County Regional Human Trafficking Task Force hotline, and that's our local task force. They can be reached 216-443-6085. We also have the Northeast Ohio Sex Trafficking Advocacy and Recovery Project Star through the Rape Crisis Center, and their hotline is 1-855-431-7827. Also, if it's minors involved, we have the Northeast Ohio Minors Belfair JCB Homeless and Missing Youth Program Hotline, 216-570-8010. And of course, there's the National Human Trafficking Hotline that you can call, 1-888-373-7888.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Renee.
Yes.
Appreciate that information. Renee, tell us about Project Red Cord that was started to help victims of trafficking.
Yes.
And if you could talk about the origin of the term Red Cord.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Red Cord comes out of the Bible, the story of Rahab in the Bible.
Okay.
And Rahab helped some spies, and in return, they wanted to, in return for her helping them, she put out a cord because they were coming into the city to take over and the people were going to be killed.
Okay.
She put out a cord. That cord let them know that she and her family would be saved because she hid the spies.
Okay.
And so and that name came from a woman that when we first started Project Red Cord, she had been in commercial sex for years. And we decided on that's what we're going to call it.
Okay.
Project Red Cord, because we're going to throw that rope out and we're going to try to save their lives.
Okay, understand. Tell us about your life skills coaching in the Red Cord
Yes.
project.
So the Project Red Cord has many arms to it.
Okay.
Part of it is programs and services for those who have been victimized by this crime. They need a lot of services, from anything from basic life skills to managing a bank account to cleaning up a house to, handling their personal business, making doctor's appointments, some things that seem very simple that they haven't been doing for
Training,
themselves.
in a sense.
Yes. So that's very important. To a number of therapies. We have trauma therapists at our center, and so we have individual counseling, we have group counseling. We also take those victims and survivors for horse therapy, which is very powerful therapy for anxiety and trauma. And so they get to go to those type of things. We also have many other things, support groups, social outings where they learn to do things that they've never done. They haven't had friends, they've been isolated. So this allows them to meet other people and allows them to start really learning how to live their lives.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit more about horse therapy?
Yes.
I was wondering how that worked out.
Oh, yes. The horse therapy is really awesome. We take the women to a place called Fieldstone Farms, which is in Chagrin Falls, and we go there monthly for the horse therapy. And what it is, it's more about working and controlling this huge animal that you now have control of.
I gotcha.
And so they learn how to care for the animals. They learn how to bond with the animals. They learn how to give commands to the animals, and the animals listen. And they learn how to, just work with them. And it is amazing what that does for someone who's been victimized.
Okay, it builds them up.
Yes, and that anxiety or being afraid, because a lot of them are very afraid when they first go. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But then they end up falling in love. This huge animal ends up really being a lifesaver.
I see. Why do you emphasize journal writing to victims?
That's really important because sometimes it's very hard for someone to start off just talking, keep telling you the same thing over what different experiences has happened to them. And for a trafficking victim, they have something that's called, it's triggers. I mean, triggers can happen to any of us. If it's a traumatic experience, it may be something. It could be a smell. It could be something you see. It could be a person that looks like the person that victimized you. And those are triggers. So when something like that happens, it could just like really set the person back.
Knock 'em
so
off.
it's very important that they learn to express themselves by journaling, how they're feeling today. Starting off, we teach them to start off by thinking of everything you can be grateful for first. Okay, so that you don't get stuck in a negative cycle. And then what all the challenges were within your day. And then wrapping it up at the end by what you're still grateful for. After all of that, I still have gratitude for this.
I can understand that. What about the new emphasis of Project Red Cord on trafficking awareness and prevention for at-risk youth?
Yes, well, that is something that we really wanted to make a dent in because, unfortunately, a lot of youth are being victimized by this crime, and we know that that's because you'll see young children as young as 7 or 8. They have cell phones, and there's no way that a parent is going to be able to look at everything they're doing on those cell phones. Or they have a lot of technology, lots of games, video games, where you can play a game with a total stranger. You don't know what that stranger is saying to your child. So we wanted to develop some way that would be fun, yet educational, and make kids aware about the dangers of human trafficking and what the red flags are. So we developed a game called Trapped.
Okay.
And in the game Trapped, you learn about what human trafficking is, and you have a team, and you have to put your loved one's name. Somebody that you care about is getting trapped in this world, and it's your goal to find out how they can get out.
Okay, so that's kind of a life-size board game.
Oh yes, huge. It's a really it kind of reminds me of when you think of the game Twister that's been around for a long time.
Right.
The big board was a big life-size board. It has people in it. We have little mannequins in it, and it has a whole list of, like a little road you go through to see the different steps that people go through, strip clubs, bars. You kind of walk through this little scenario and see all this stuff.
So it's a microcosm of life.
Oh, yes, very nice.
That one game that is life-size.
And it's really, and you can win. We have like a trophy. It's just set up just like a game. So it's very engaging for youth. We take it to outreach efforts. We take it to churches, and any place where there's going to be a lot of youth around.
Okay. Again, helps them in training.
Yes.
Training to deal with this situation. What are the program goals for the at-risk youth?
Yes. Well, we have a lot of goals for them, but number one, introducing them to a strong support system. That's very important because some youth, unfortunately, don't have that. And when they're coming and being involved, they're getting used to a strong support system. Also, to provide tools for them to make healthy choices because sometimes they don't know how to make healthy choices for what they're doing.
What would be a tool that they...
So they would learn, for example, in this game about what is real love when someone loves
Oh,
you.
okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Because if someone loves you, they would never hurt you. They would never beat you. They would
Okay.
never do. So we teach them things like that so that they
Okay.
know that doesn't mean that. And they're
Right.
learning if someone loves you, this is what would happen.
Right.
So, also connecting them with a caring adult. That's very important because most of the people that we have involved, they're caring adults.
The volunteers.
Yes, they're volunteers, board members, people that give their time. Involve youth with a positive peer group. There are other kids coming together trying to learn and do the right thing and learn about this crime. So that's really good. They continue to come together with these different teenagers.
Okay, these teenagers are the positive peer group.
Yes.
These are folks that maybe have gone through the
Yes,
training.
And they're called youth ambassadors.
Okay.
And so youth ambassadors are kids that are 13 to 19 who have trained and they run the game. So it's
Oh,
a peer-to-peer thing, and they are interested in human trafficking and want to get the word out, but they're receiving information from someone that's their peer.
Okay, so it's easier to take it
Oh,
from
yes.
one of your peers.
Absolutely. Very powerful. And then it provides opportunities for youth to express themselves through creative programs because kids need to be able to express themselves. Whether we agree with what their point of view is or not, they need the opportunity to express themselves.
And how is that done?
And that's done because it's done through the dialogue of the discussion within the game.
Okay, all right.
And then the last thing is give youth the opportunity to gain new and healthy friendships through mentorship.
Okay, and how are those mentorships created?
So when they come in, they're going to have adults and they're going to have the peer group that's doing the training.
Right.
And then they're going to have, we have like a teen summit and other groups, weekly groups that they can come to. So they're invited to come to those and continue their friendships and mentorships with the adults that are involved in the groups.
Okay.
No going off one-on-one. Everything is done in a group setting.
I got you. Now, you mentioned about the youth ambassadors.
Yes.
There's a training academy pilot program. What activities do the ambassadors get involved in?
So it's really great because they get a chance to take out our training film and actually do human trafficking awareness training using the film that we made, dialoguing with the audience that they're presenting to, asking questions. That's what a youth ambassador can do. They also participate in taking the game out and facilitating the game with whatever group we're going to. And they also have spoken at the State House for Human Trafficking Awareness Day with Senator Teresa Fetter.
Oh, okay.
And been involved. So they get a chance to get exposure to some great opportunities as well as really spreading the word for other youth.
Okay. And if a community wanted to have this, like the life-size game,
Yes.
Trapped,
Yes.
they would just be able to contact you?
Yes, they would have to contact us, and we'd have to arrange it because it's a lot of pieces that go with it.
Okay.
And, we may ask for a small donation for traveling and bringing all this stuff.
Okay, to help things along.
Yes.
Okay. What are the allies of the Empowerment Center?
Well, who are the allies?
Yes.
Well, we have a lot of different allies. The beauty of Project Red Cord, it helped for us to build allies because it opens the door for everyone to get involved, whether you're a mom, whether you're from an organization, whether you're from a faith organization, whether you're from a corporation.
Okay.
There's something that everyone can do. And really, we have gotten allies from all of those different places.
Okay, understand. Now, I see there's exhibits, the Truth and Unleashed exhibits.
Yes.
What are they?
Okay, so we have, again, these are tools that we use to talk about human trafficking awareness. The Truth and Unleashed exhibit are exhibits that were developed by survivors.
I gotcha.
And so the Truth exhibit and the Unleashed exhibit was the first exhibit. And that exhibit was created by survivor stories and triggers. That's when we wanted people to learn what are triggers and how do they affect victims and what do they do. So we took the stories of several survivors and we actually have all of the things that they were triggered by. It might have been a scent, might have been some piece of furniture, it could be anything, but really it teaches people to know that there are triggers that can happen that can really set a victim into a really bad panic attack. And we wanted people to learn, if you're around a victim, that these are some of the triggers that they experience.
Oh, and so communities could ask for these exhibits to be...
Absolutely. We actually have a team right now because of COVID. When all of this, the Truth exhibit was developed, we were not able to have like a grand opening of what we wanted to, because it is a phenomenal exhibit. So now we have a team where we're looking for venues that this exhibit can be displayed, because it's literally a photo exhibit. It's a great exhibit.
So it would be a library or a school?
It could be a library, it could be a school, it could be, a corporation, a church, that this is a way that they can learn about it.
Okay. And they would go through the website or contact
just
you?
contact the center.
Okay. Now, tell me about the Project Red Cord Nights Out.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Okay. So Project Red Cord Night Out, you can see the Project Red Cord expands in all the different services, programs and services, education and awareness. And then the night out is street outreach.
Okay.
When you're working with these victims, there are so many victims out there that first of all don't know they're victims. Second of all, don't know that there's any help available if they were to, want help. So we end up starting outreach years ago because I felt that we needed to take our services to the street where it's actually happening. So we are in 4 neighborhoods in Cuyahoga County and 1 neighborhood in Summit County.
Okay.
And we get together with, we go once a month in each of these areas. We provide basic care needs for the people. We provide food, and we provide an array of resources that they can get right there on the street. If you're on drugs and you want to go and get some help right now, we can make that happen.
Okay.
If you need a health screening right now, and we have it, we work with medical students, we can do that for you. If you need help and you're a runaway, there's an organization there. So the beauty of Project Red Cord Night Out is that it has allowed us to create community in a lot of these areas. This has built relationship collaboratively with other organizations, with churches where they can come, or any faith-based organization provide. All they have to do is bring their own table and bring something that they want to give out about what they offer.
Okay. Does the Empowerment Center have other events?
Yes.
I know about the one I talked about, but
Yes.
or you just talked about. But
Yes, so we have a number of events. So we do 2 conferences per year,
Okay.
and that is to continually educate the general public, law enforcement, doctors, professionals. So we have had our conferences for years at Notre Dame College. Then we had COVID, so we had to not do it. But we hope to start back up in the spring and have another in-person conference and get back on
God
there.
willing.
Yes, we hope so.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. We also have an event that we do every couple of years called Runway Freedom. And that is where you learn about human trafficking around the globe. And we'll highlight, maybe the worst 10 countries, tell you, but we do it through fashion and sampling of the different cultural foods. So that's a way it's entertaining, but yet educational. Then we bring it all the way down to Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. All right. How can Avon? I wanted to ask you, how do you support your activities?
So our support is we are funded by the VOCA grant, the Victims of Crime grant,
Okay.
through the Ohio Attorney General's office. That's one source of funding. But we rely on, private donations, corporate donations, groups, organizations that they meet. It could be a faith-based organization. So we rely on pretty much all streams of support to survive, because one grant can't
True,
take care of everything.
true.
And unfortunately, all of those grants have been cut significantly when even the issue has gotten worse with this pandemic.
Right.
So it's imperative that we reach anybody that has you don't have to be a millionaire to donate.
Understand.
Everybody can donate.
Any level of donation is
Yes.
fine. What future plans exist for the Empowerment Center? What's blue sky?
We're so excited about our global initiative. Our project Red Cord, we have created over the years 2 different models. A model of programs and services to help a victim survive and live a new life, and one for outreach and prevention to prevent this from occurring in neighborhoods.
Right.
And we know that these 2 models can benefit various countries that maybe have very limited resources. So we are now starting to work on, it's called the Global Initiative. And we're just at the very beginning, being able to work with different organizations, in other countries,
Okay.
to see if it's something in our models that they want to pilot and try. And so you will be hearing more of that as we get it developed.
All right. Maybe we'll have you back.
Absolutely, we would love to.
Okay. What is the website for your organization, and how can people get in contact with you?
Sure. The best way to get in contact is, of course, our website is rjecempower.org. rjecempower.org.
Okay.
And through there, you can also click on our Facebook page, Twitter. We're on all the social media platforms. Or you can just Google the Renee Jones Empowerment Center.
Okay. Your email address?
Sure. My email address is rjones@rjecempower.org.
Okay. And your phone?
And my phone is 216-417-0823.
Okay. Well, in summary, what makes sense to you and what doesn't on this issue?
Well, I think what makes sense is that when I get people like you who are interviewing me and asking me these questions, and we're an audience that maybe doesn't know anything about human trafficking, will learn that this is actually occurring where we live in our communities. So that makes great sense to me. And I hope that answers your question.
Well, I'm happy to provide a forum for you to
Yes.
speak about your organization that does really wonderful work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. If you have any comments, questions, you can certainly get in touch with either of us. Our emails will be on the screen. Please give us feedback. You can give us, if you'd like to be on the show, give us your contact information, or you know someone who's interesting, they would like to appear on the show, we can get involved in that. And remember that seatbelts save lives. Thank you.
The preceding program was presented to you by a community producer. The statements, views, and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of ALC TV or the City of Avon Lake.